Indiana County 911. My brother's gone. Can you be a little more specific, sir? He took my brother. Who took him? I don't know who took him. I don't know what. Sir, take a breath. Explain to me what happened.
And I looked out and there was this big red blinking UFO.
I can just say this. Something's going on in the woods. Something's going on.
They're not dogs, they're not coyotes. What could it be, right?
I had an encounter with a skunk ape, and it completely altered the course of my life.
I found a skull. I think you guys are going to want to come film this.
Put him out. I just see it.
Sightings of a UFO hovering over a barn.
Millie woke up from a dream, and when I went into the bedroom, she said there's a monster on the wall.
They saw that the creature had run through a barbed wire fence. They were able to obtain hairs. They sent the hairs to their lab, and it came back as an unknown creature.
Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin.
What is up, Bizarrites, and welcome back to the most bizarre show on the internet. I am the one that, like, a handful of people at least call Shane Squatch.
We are officially dealing with a fucking Sam Squamch.
Well, Bubbles, not a Sam Squanch, a Shane Squatch. Very, very close, but slightly different.
And distant cousins,
maybe. And then over here, as you can see, I also have the other gentleman with me. I have the big bad Boo Daddy himself, Sir Orin Felix.
Who's your daddy? Boo.
Yes, Daddy.
Man, you just keep topping yourself with these ridiculous-ass intros.
I'm going to try to make one for each show. Just even if it's just a little bit of something special, I got to give you at least a little bit of something. But speaking of intros,
it goes from like rough and manly to very suggestive there at the end.
It has to get provocative as it goes through. Yes. You know, it sets the pace and then it ends lightly. But as far as intros go, too,
lightly that's ending. But okay, it might be a happy ending though.
Happy ending at least, yes. Hey, but at least you get the boo beforehand, so you are the Boo Daddy.
Okay, that's all that matters, right?
That's all that matters. But as far as before we get into the show and everything, as far as personal life updates, I know that you have something that you wanted to mention before we get into everything. So without further ado, why don't you let them know a little bit about the updates you got going on, man?
Yeah, this is kind of business / pleasure, if you will. But as I've been mentioning the past few episodes, me and Jenny are going to be at the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. It's the last weekend in July, like 25th, 26th, something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head. We're not going to be vending. We're just going to be hanging out. So if you guys are going to be at the show, definitely hit us up. And if you see us, holler at us. We'd definitely love to hang out with you guys and maybe sip some moonshine with y'all. So that's all I got.
And then as far as me for updates, nothing special, nothing fun. Just, tank malfunctions and trying to pile out dinner real quick before the show. But I am ready.
A tank like a fish tank or like a military tank?
No, like these awesome tanks that are behind me that you can see on the live feed for all the lovely viewers out there that are looking at our mugs, unfortunately. Sorry for everybody.
It'd be a whole lot cooler if it was like an army tank.
I wish I had an army tank. But hey, you lose the fun of an army tank because if you buy it legally, it of course has to have the barrel sealed shut. So at that point, you just have a glorified tractor. So it loses half the fun, but
but it's a super badass tractor.
I just want to blow stuff up in a field. I'm not trying to make mass destruction. I just want to blow up a giant hill just for fun. Like, just give me a big field, let me blow some stuff up. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Bin Laden.
God damn it. But for everybody that likes to listen to all of our craziness that we get into and all of our side tangents, there's a special place that they're able to do that once a month. Warren, why don't you let them know a little bit about it?
All right, so our next episode of Bizarre Inquiries is going to be Thursday, July the 3rd. So right before the holiday weekend, great way for you guys to just roll straight into your holiday. But anyway, it's going to be roughly 7:15-ish Eastern time on the Open Minds Media YouTube channel. So you guys be sure to submit questions or articles or anything like that you want us to inquire about, and also join in on the chat. That's a lot of fun getting to talk to you guys as we're talking about the material.
And if you guys enjoy catching Bizarre Encounters live, you guys can catch it typically every single Thursday around 7 or 7:30, depending on if we're having a guest or we're doing a solo show. If we're doing the solo shows, generally 7:30. If we're doing the guest shows 7:15. Got to give us a little bit of leeway in there. But for anybody that wants to catch the schedule for everything, it's usually posted on social medias on Monday, so you guys can catch it over there. Or if you guys subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell notification in the corner, and then when we go live, you guys will know instantly, and you guys will be able to hop in and listen to our weird conversations about weird things.
And if any of you guys out there want to be a guest on the show or get up with us for any reason whatsoever, Shane, tell them how they can do that.
First and foremost, you guys can email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com, or you guys can get a hold of us through the hotline. You guys can call or text that. That number is 313-364-1551. And if you guys didn't catch that, it is available down in the show notes.
And as always, all this shit we've mentioned is in the link tree in the show description.
And now hopping into what we're getting into today. I know this is something that Orin has put together. We're trying to stay a little bit more in the field of diving into some weird stuff that not a lot of people have talked about. And from what I've seen of this one, it looks like Orin has definitely done that yet again. So without further ado, I will let Orin get into what we're going to be diving into today.
Yeah, so this one is going to be a little more folklore driven, like a lot of the stuff we've been talking about recently. And, on the show, we talk about a lot of cryptids. We talk about Dogman. We talk about Mothman. Hell, we've even talked about Bunny Man. But we have not, until tonight, talked about Alligator Man. But that's about to change. So,
Lizard Man is very close to Alligator Man, right?
Well, we might touch on that here at the end. But do you have anything before I jump in, Shane?
Well, I'm already excited, so let's get into this. I love the oddities, so I'm already down.
All right. So, like I said, we're going to talk about a couple different Alligator Man type legends on tonight's show. And we're going to start with the story of Jake the Alligator Man. So, Jake the Alligator Man is an alleged human alligator hybrid creature. And his kind of like preserved remains, allegedly, are on display at Marsh's Free Museum. And this is kind of like a roadside attraction type situation. And it's located in Long Beach, Washington. So not Long Beach, California, Long Beach, Washington. And according to the story that's told by the museum, way back in 1921, yeah, there you go.
There's a nice little mug right there.
Yep. So anyway, way back in 1921, there was a man named Wellington Marsh Sr. And according to this story, he left North Dakota kind of like at the beginning of the Great Depression because he went bankrupt farming rutabagas, which is pretty funny. And he eventually settled in Long Beach, Washington. And after a while, he opened up an ice cream parlor. So fast forwarding to 1930, there was this steamship called the SS Admiral Benson, and it ran aground like right off the coast of Long Beach, Washington. And the ship like remained stuck on this sandbar for several days. And there were 35 passengers and 64 crew members. And eventually, all the passengers and crew members, except for the captain, whose name was C.C. Graham, were kind of evacuated and transported to a nearby beach. So soon after this happened, like this really bad storm rolled in, and it kind of like began tearing the ship into all these different pieces. So after the storm, the ship was kind of declared like unsalvageable. And at that point, the captain finally abandoned ship and came ashore. But anyway, this kind of shipwreck attracted a lot of large crowds of visitors to this beach. And this Mr. Marsh, kind of sensing this business opportunity, he decided to open a hamburger stand on the beach. And kind of interestingly, this beach was later renamed Benson Beach after this shipwreck. But anyway, this hamburger stand was super duper successful. And because of this, Marsh converted his ice cream parlor into like a bar and restaurant. And again, this is during the Great Depression. So when like bar patrons were unable to pay their bar tabs, Marsh kind of started this practice where he would accept like unusual or interesting personal items as payment. And he started like displaying these items in the bar, like on the walls and behind the bar. And as he collected more and more of these items, this ultimately led to him pivoting away from the bar and restaurant and opening Marsh's Free Museum in 1935, which is kind of like this oddity, freak show, Ripley's Believe It or Not type situation.
Dude, I love those places. I wish there was more of these roadside attractions that existed, because it seems like they're kind of falling into obscurity where, I mean, they're obscure to begin with, but like roadside attractions seem to be slowly dying out. So I miss places that exist like this, because I felt like there was a lot more even when we were kids driving around.
Well, yeah, I mean, you would see like gator farms and stuff like that off the road all the time. And like, a lot of that stuff, like you said, seems like it's fallen by the wayside. But, you know, it seems like here, you know, 30s, 40s, 50s, even probably up until the 60s, a lot of this stuff was a lot more prevalent, like we said, than it is nowadays.
You want to hear something really, really sad? So, you know, the whole like weird Michigan, weird whatever, all the stuff that Linda Godfrey was writing, all those books?
Yeah.
So there was a weird Michigan museum that was like part of that was up in the UP in St. Ignace, which is like right when you go over the Mackinac Bridge. It's like right there where there's a bunch of like little cute tourist kind of stores and like native stores and all that kind of stuff. So I figured out about this place after being up there a million times and not seeing it. And I finally realized where it is. I look it up and I'm like, awesome, I'm going to go here next time I go up there. Closed 2 years before. So I was like, God damn it. I was going up there and this place was around the area, but it was like kind of tucked in a weird spot. So like I never saw it. And unfortunately, I never actually got to check it out. But supposedly they had like you know, Dogman statues and stuff in there, Sasquatch statues, and a bunch of like weird paraphernalia type oddity stuff from Michigan, dude. So talk about missing out, man. I'm curious what happened to all that shit. If they like sold it off or somebody took it all or like what, but either way, man, it's still sad.
And it seems like you said, there is still like little things like that. Just a couple hours from here in Raleigh, there's like this, I think they call it like the International Paranormal and Cryptozoology Museum. But basically this guy just started this thing like on the first floor of his house, like with like Bigfoot tracks and things like that. And eventually he got like a standalone building. But anyway, like me and Jenny, probably been 2 or 3 years ago now, just took a day trip up there and checked it out. It was really cool. So, I mean, there's little things like that that still exist, but they're kind of hidden gems at this point. You definitely got to kind of search for them, it seems like.
Dude, I got one spot that I really enjoy. That it's called the Troll Hole. It's in Ohio, and it's supposed to have the biggest collection of troll dolls. Right?
The Troll Hole.
The Troll Hole. So, you know, we ended up going there because Gabby's into trolls, my girlfriend. So, you know, we go there, we check out all the troll stuff. Then we go upstairs, and then I realized that there's a section that gets into like troll folklore. So they have like a section where it's like a Sasquatch room with a bunch of Sasquatch paraphernalia and stuff. They start getting into like the Norwegian trolls.
Some of y'all's pictures from this. Didn't y'all stop at it? Like coming back from Small Town Monsters or something?
Yeah. It was when you were coming back from Small Town Monsters. But that's one of those cool places that it's like, you know, it's advertised as like the troll hole. So it's like, you know, folklore people aren't necessarily thinking like, oh, you know, I want to go see a giant troll collection. You know, it's kind of, you know, the people that are into collecting trolls. But there's this whole secret section with like Bigfoot and everything up there. Talking about like wood trolls and forest trolls and shit. Like that's one of those awesome roadside attractions now that I found on accident. And now it's like every time I drive through, dude, I end up stopping in there just because even the gift store, dude, they got a bunch of Bigfoot stuff all over. And I get sold with that stuff, you know?
Well, as we're going to see here in a few minutes, the intersection of folklore and cryptids is pretty interesting. So I think that was a good segue.
I didn't even do it on purpose. Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break.
But in the meantime, don't forget to follow Bizarre Encounters on Instagram and Facebook, and don't forget to check out Open Minds Media on YouTube and TikTok. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to leave a comment or spark up a conversation. We love getting to know you guys.
And now back to the show.
Anyway, so jumping back in. Throughout the years, this museum, Marsh's Free Museum, their collection has grown to include all sorts of oddities like shrunken heads, and they've got like taxidermied two-headed calves. Like I said, it's really similar to like a family-owned Ripley's Believe It or Not type situation. But anyway, what they're most famous for... Oh, there you go. There's a Bigfoot statue right there that you're looking at.
Yep, right in the front door. And they got a big bear. They got this old pirate. And then, of course, there's Jake the Alligator Man.
Yes. And what they are most famous for is Jake the Alligator Man. And his kind of remains appear to be, quote, a mummified-looking head and arms attached to a taxidermied alligator carcass. And this kind of relic or specimen or whatever you want to call it was acquired in 1968 when Marsh's son, Wellington Marsh Jr., purchased him from an antiques dealer for $750, which would be like $6,700 in today's money. So this thing was like pretty expensive for back in the day. But allegedly, like according to the story, so like Mr. Marsh Jr. like initially scoffed at like how expensive this thing was, but his wife convinced him to like go back and purchase it, which I think is kind of funny. Like you'd think it'd be the opposite way. Like his wife would be the one like complaining about how expensive this weird thing was. But no, it was pretty funny that she kind of convinced him to go back and buy it. But anyway,
he's like, so if I buy it, I'm going to put a pinup girl behind it. Does anybody notice this little pinup girl picture right here?
Oh, we're getting there. That's one of the funniest parts of the story. But anyway, so Jake's origins still kind of largely remain a mystery. But a lot of people have speculated that it was created by a man named Homer Tate. And Tate was nicknamed the King of Gaffs. And he was kind of infamous for creating like numerous artifacts and sideshow exhibits throughout like the 40s and 50s. So like things you'd see at like the county fair and stuff like that, like, the kind of shit I'm talking about, like mermaids and, bearded lady, like all those kind of artifacts. Basically, this guy specialized in making those. So anyway, furthermore, people have kind of speculated that prior to being owned by this antique dealer, Jake was on display at this landmark in San Francisco called the Cliff House. And that the antiques dealer kind of acquired this thing after the Cliff House monument building, whatever, burned down. So that's kind of the background of Jake. Do you have anything to add before we jump into the next section?
I mean, he looks like he's kind of charred, so I wonder if he was actually in that fire. I mean, is there any background to that, or?
I don't know. I did not come across that in any of my notes, but that's a good observation, I think.
And also, just I don't know if you actually mentioned it during the notes, but do they confirm that it actually is like an actual human skull that's used for this?
I don't know if anybody's like confirmed, but based off of some stuff that we're going to talk about a little bit later, it would lead me to believe that it was a human skull that was used to create this. But again, I didn't run across anything specifically saying so. They're spoiler alert, they're kind of finicky about letting people like do tests on this sort of thing. He's just kind of remained in the museum for whatever 50 some years now.
See, they were grandfathered in with it because I know you need to have like a special type of like license to have like human remain body parts like legally on display. Because there's a couple of museums that are like in my area that are like oddity museums that have like human skulls and stuff. And they mentioned that you have to have a special license. So I wonder if they're like, if nobody knows if it's real or not, then, we don't need to have a special license for it.
Well, and like you said, maybe they've just had this shit for so long it doesn't matter, because other pictures I ran across of the exhibits in this museum, they have like a full-on like human skeleton in a coffin there. So
can you imagine being this guy that his head got used if it is a real human skull? Like you're immortalized in time as being a little nymph guy attached to an alligator body.
Hey, I can think of a lot less cool legacies to leave behind.
True. I like how they took the time to actually like file down the teeth too, to make them like pointed teeth.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, and we're going to get into some kind of connections to other things like this, but
this is probably convincing as fuck. Like when the people first started seeing this thing, like, I mean, who knows how far back it goes. I mean, probably, I'm assuming like early 1900s. So at that point, people were a lot more optimistic to these things. So dude, imagine like the first wave of people, they were like, holy fuck, this thing's real.
Well, I have a theory on when it was created, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
I won't interrupt anymore. I'll let you get back in.
It's all good. All right, so jumping back in, on November 9th, 1993, there was an edition of the Weekly World News tabloid that was released. And this thing is kind of one of those, like rag mags that you used to see in the kind of like grocery store checkout line, like Bat Boy impregnates local girl, that kind of shit.
Like Daily, or what's that? Inquirer? The Inquirer?
Yes, one of those type deals. But anyway, this tabloid featured a front page article with the headline, quote, "Half human, half alligator discovered in Florida swamp." And it was kind of this like humorous tongue-in-cheek article. And it talked about how, quote, "The creature was discovered alive, hissing and carrying on in a grotesque manner." And it went on to talk about, quote, "Its escape from captivity, attack on a man in Miami, and his subsequent delivery of a baby, ... his own, exclamation mark."
Dun, dun, dun.
So that's quite the tale that they spun there. But what's kind of funny is accompanying this article was a photo of Jake the Alligator Man that Marsh's Free Museum used for postcards. And they claimed that throughout the years, they have sold over 30,000 postcards. So like this picture was just like out there in the public, and they basically stole this picture of Jake the Alligator Man for this made up story that they put in their rag mag tabloid. So I thought that was kind of funny.
I got to find this picture. They had I think it was one of the stickers that they made for it. I think that was originally why I brought up this page in the first place. It was like a Jake the Alligator Man is my friend or something like that sticker.
Yeah, I think in one of the pictures here on the website, you can see kind of one of the postcards. It might be under that Jake's Place tab.
Let me see here. I think I got it up on this other screen. I just got to bring it up right here. Is this the one right here? Oh, shit. I had it up, and then it went down. I got it. Just give me 1 second.
I think that might be like a T-shirt or something. But
my friend Jake, Long Beach, Washington. That one?
Yeah, but anyway, that's like the same images that they use for like T-shirts and stickers and things like that. But anyway, so back in 1993, they used a picture of Jake for this tabloid. But anyway, kind of jumping back in. So Jake has become like a popular figure in the culture and folklore of the Pacific Northwest. And every August 1st, the town of Long Beach, Washington celebrates Jake's quote unquote birthday. And the celebration features like live music and a car show. And this is funny, a contest where, quote, local residents choose a local maiden to become Jake's bride. And if you want to pull up the Marsh's Free Museum website, there's some pretty funny pictures on there.
Is this the website right here?
No, just the one you were on a little bit ago.
This guy. Wait, no. I just brought up the same one. Here, hold on. I got it. I still got the screen up. I just have so many screens. There it is. All right. This website, right?
Yeah, so go to the Jake's Place tab. Yeah, and go down to Jake's birthday and click on that. Yeah, and just scroll.
Jake's
so there
birthday.
you go. You can see like these pictures. You were talking about the pinup girl pictures. So these are like pictures with Jake and his bride of the year. And for our listeners, like they've got this kind of girl done up in like Marilyn Monroe pinup type makeup, and her and Jake are laid out on a blanket on the grass, and then they've got Jake sipping a martini on a pool table. So Jake lives it up. He's got a pretty good life for a deceased alligator man hybrid creature.
Jack, I want you to draw me like one of your French girls.
Not Jack, but Jake. Jake, draw me like one of your French girls.
I think they both could have fit on that door, though. Jake doesn't look like he's very big.
No, definitely not. But either way, man, I mean, Jake's clearly getting it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Jake got game.
75 years old, man. He's still getting it. You see that?
But anyway, so in 1972, Marsh's Free Museum moved to a new location, which was across the street from the original location. And the site is also home to, quote, the world's largest frying pan and the world's largest razor clam. So like this whole little complex that they've built is just like roadside attraction, like, like in a National Lampoon's Family Vacation, where they're like, oh, we're going to go see the world's biggest ball of yarn. Like it's that kind of stuff. Oh, there's one of the pictures of the skeletons I was talking about.
Yep. I was trying to get into the main website because they got a bunch of crazy stuff like the two-headed cow.
Yeah.
See if there's the skeleton you were mentioning that was within the coffin. They got an arcade, of course, too, apparently, like an antique arcade. I mean, that's pretty dope.
Yeah. So anyway, like this whole complex is just chock full of like roadside attraction, Americana, Route 66 type stuff. And in 2010, there was a local high school senior, and he created the world's largest chopsticks for like his senior project. And those are also displayed like in front of the museum, which I thought was kind of funny. And like you said, it also features antiques. They've got vintage arcade games, this like huge gift shop, it looks like. And they also claim to be home to, quote, America's largest collection of glass fishing floats, which seems like a pretty easy claim to make. I don't know who's going to fight you on that. And they also say that they have a world-class collection of seashells.
Oh, there's the world's biggest frying pan, by the way.
Yeah, there you go.
Found it a little delayed, but that's a pretty damn big-ass fucking frying pan.
So Wellington Marsh Sr. died back in 1978, but the family still owns and operates the museum to this day. And like you've seen looking at the pictures, there's a lot of cool stuff there. And like if anybody is in the area, you can just pop in and see this thing, which I think is pretty cool.
So it says free Marsh Free Museum. Does that mean that it's free to visit, or is that just a name that kind of just fell in from back when he used to have the coffee shop or whatever, and just would tell people, hey, go look at the stuff while you're enjoying your meal and your whatever?
So I think that was like the original impetus of it. Like it was a free museum when it started, and it was basically like a guy's just to sell trinkets and stuff out of the gift shop. But anyway, I've combed through this website doing research for this episode, and I didn't see anything on there where it said that it costs to go see it. So I'm assuming it is still free to this day, and you can buy some, little sand dollars and world-class collection of seashells, and they show like pirates hats and shit you can buy there. So if you want some cheap, crappy beach souvenirs and to see some weird shit, I mean, you're in luck.
I'm going to look it up just for the sake of it, because I looked on the website, and it doesn't look like it has a price or anything like that. I think it might actually be free. And it's free to go. That's what it's saying on this other website. So it is still free to attend.
Okay, there you go.
I'm assuming they try to make most of their money on the gift shop. So that being said, if people go in and check this place out, keep places like this alive, and make sure that even though it's a free museum, you grab something nice from their gift shop.
Buy you one of those postcards.
Yeah, at least buy yourself a nice postcard. I'm sure they got little Jake figurines, you'd set up a little Jake figurine on your desk on top of a, miniature of the world's largest frying pan, because why the hell not?
Wouldn't that just be a frying pan? A miniature of the world's largest frying pan?
See, that's the gimmick. It's just a normal size frying pan.
Like model scale replicas of the world's largest frying pan. It's just a frying pan.
Miniature model of the world's largest ball of yarn. We got a million different ideas we can do with this. This is like an infinite business. This is like a strategy. We got to go with it, man.
Scale replicas of world's largest chopsticks. Those are free. We just go get Chinese food. We have just stumbled ass backwards into a perfect business model.
$20. $20. It's authentic. It comes with a little thing that says 1 of 100.
We'll just write Marsh's Free Museum and Sharpie on like the chopsticks. We're good to go, man.
Good to go.
We're going to make tens of dollars until we get a cease and desist letter.
And then they're going to try to sue us for all that we have, and we'll be like, here's our pennies. Enjoy, sir.
That's not going to be much.
Can't sue me if I ain't got nothing. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back with that bizarre stuff you crave.
But just a quick reminder, if you would like to snag some gear from this show, inquiries of our reality, or one of your favorite creatures or topics, hop on over to the Open Minds Media merch store for a wide range of designs and new drops regularly, and t-shirts for the low price of just $15.68. That's oddly specific, plus shipping.
And we're back with the high strangeness. Let's get back into it.
All right, so kind of jumping back in, when I was originally doing the research for this one, I was going to kind of just do Jake the Alligator Man as like a cryptid grab bag section, like just kind of a smaller thing. But like we're prone to do, as I got digging into this, I found some other things that kind of connected to it, and I thought it warranted a whole episode. So we're going to kind of jump into some of those now. So obviously, like Jake the Alligator Man is not a legitimate hybrid creature. This is like a sideshow attraction that this guy probably created. But anyway, I did find a story that I think possibly could have been the inspiration. So there is a Colombian legend of El Hombre Caimán, which literally translates to the Alligator Man.
And sounds a lot cooler in Spanish, though.
It does. It sounds exotic. But anyway, according to this legend, there was a fisherman named Saul Montenegro, and he once lived in a small coastal town called Plateau, Colombia. And Montenegro was kind of fond of like hiding on the banks of the Magdalena River and spying on young women as they bathed. And he was fearful of being caught. So he went to this local witch and she gave him 2 potions. There was a red potion that would transform him into an alligator and a white one that would like return him back to his human form. So he enlisted the help of one of his friends to like pour the white potion all over his body and transform him into an alligator. So once he switched into his alligator form, he was able to avoid detection and like spy on these women from below the surface of the river. So, you know, this guy was just having a grand old time. And when he finished up, whatever that might have entailed,
He's climbing in your windows. He's snatching your people up, trying to rape them. So y'all need to hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband because they raping everybody out here.
because the alligator man's coming.
Alligator man's coming in more than one way, man.
Yeah. But anyway, so after he got done, he got his friend to pour the white potion all over him and he transformed back into his human form.
The white potion.
Yeah. So him and his friend, they repeated this process like several more times without any incident. But one day the friend, for some reason, was like unable to help him. So Montenegro was forced to like seek assistance from another local man. And this man like poured the red potion all over him to transform him into an alligator. But when the time came to like pour the white potion over him, this guy became like terrified of Montenegro's alligator form, and he dropped the potion bottle and it broke after he had only poured it on Montenegro's head and torso. So his head and torso.
That's the sound he was making as he was transforming. In case
Probably
anybody was
what he
wondering.
was doing. But anyway, so his head and torso were returned to human form, but it left his alligator body and tail intact.
Are these real statues, by the way? Or are these, because it looks like they might be.
We're going to get to that here in a second.
All right, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right thing here. I'm bringing up the right picture. So
You are. Okay, so after this incident, Montenegro became known locally as El Hombre Caimán, and he was kind of shunned from the local village, and only his mother would like talk to him or have anything to do with him. And she tried like all these different ways to return him to his fully human form. She was unsuccessful every time. So eventually she tried to locate this witch who had originally given him the potions. Well, she found out that the witch had died. And at this point, the mother was basically like heartbroken. She gave up hope. She returned to the village and soon she died of grief. So at this point, Montenegro, or the Alligator Man, was like completely alone. He had no friends. He had no hope of returning to his human form. So he decided to float down the Magdalena River and out to sea, never to be seen again. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the legend, the story, what have you. But where it gets kind of interesting, I think, is allegedly in the 1940s, the story of El Hombre Caimán was published in a local newspaper called La Prensa. But this newspaper is now defunct, and there's like no known copies of this article that still exist. But like we talked about earlier, this guy who was like the king of the gaffs, who made all the sideshow artifacts, he was active in like the 40s and the 50s. So I think it's very possible that he heard this legend or saw a copy of this article somehow and created the Jake the Alligator Man thing based off of this legend. And kind of jumping back in before we get into some of the pictures that you have pulled up, this legend has become like ingrained in the coastal communities of Colombia. And in Plateau, Colombia, there's a park with a statue built to honor the Alligator Man. And that's that one that you've got pulled up there in the top left. And if you look at that, I mean, doesn't it seem like Jake the Alligator Man could be like an artistic rendering of this statue?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Even like the complexion of the statue kind of fits with the whole, you know, like I was saying, maybe he was charred at some point, or maybe that was intentional because it was kind of fitting the story of this, but just to throw in kind of a theory on possibly the origins of the story, because it seems like with most folklore, it's all rooted in some type of something. And of course, the alligator / human hybrid seems like, it's a little far-fetched. So trying to think of like real world explanations, how like in South America, it seems like it's pretty prevalent that there's a lot of like birth defects. I'm kind of curious if, this may have been some kid that had like some kind of birth defect to the bottom half of his body, and people started telling stories saying that he looked like an alligator, or, he wasn't able to walk, so he'd like drag his legs or something like that. And it just ended up, through the years becoming this more and more folklore-y story about this kid actually being an half alligator versus, maybe having, again, some type of problem where he wasn't able to walk or he had deformed legs and it looked like an alligator.
Oh, it's funny you mentioned that because I didn't think about this when I was putting the episode together, but it made me think about what you just said. That is about a old Ancient Aliens episode where they're talking about like the reptilians, I think. But anyway, they go through like known human birth defects where like, 1 out of every 1,000 people are born with a tail or something like that. Like it's not like a long alligator tail, but still. And they talked about how there is like a rare skin condition that it's like a super aggressive form of like cirrhosis or what is it called? Eczema or whatever.
Oh, eczema, yeah, where your skin kind of looks kind of scaly and patchy.
Yeah, there's like another one, but anyway. There's like a super aggressive form of that basically makes you look scaly. So, if this is happening 100 years ago, it seems very plausible to me that like there could have been, an unfortunate child who had these birth defects, and this kind of story could have come out of that. So I didn't think about that, but that's a really great point.
And I mean, it seems like, I'm kind of curious if you look into it, if it seems like with a lot of those birth defects, they seem to be pretty like regional, where there's like a huge area where it seems like it's a lot more prevalent than other areas. So I'm kind of curious if you look into Colombia, if maybe the skin condition is one of the more prevalent birth defects that happen in the area, because, you may have already figured out the answer to this folklore right off of that.
Yeah, I didn't think about that angle, but no, that's really cool. See, that's why we need to just spitball this stuff as we're going through it.
Exactly. Because, I mean, obviously with a lot of like the South American stuff too, they're very like spiritual people in more than one way. So, of course, like, it's going to end up taking on this folklore aspect, even if it starts off as something small, just because of like their belief system, their belief structure. And on top of the fact, dude, they see a lot of crazy shit out in South America. Like, how many endless stories are there about all these crazy creatures that are like in the jungles that are, the UFO stuff that kind of pops up. So it's like, this is just another one to add onto the list. And it, is probably one of those things they don't really think twice about the origin of it because they're seeing enough weird shit already. They're like, all right, fucking alligator man, here you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just like on a more practical level, like if this shit went back 100 years ago, it seems pretty logical to me. Like people didn't have as much of an understanding of like science and medicine as they do now. And people just would have called, this individual, oh, hey, that's the alligator man, and not thought anything else of it. So, I mean, I can totally see how a story like this, like we talk about, Game of Telephone throughout the years, could have grown out of something as simple as that,
Or there was just a Nephilim hybrid that randomly popped up in the middle of Colombia.
It's an actual reptilian.
It's an actual reptilian. Or a half reptilian. It's a hybrid reptilian.
There you go.
They're like, we need to refigure this science out because clearly this ain't working.
It's like one of the intermediate stages of like the Pokemon evolution.
It just comes out like, kill me.
What's the bullshit alien movie where there's like all the half clones of Ripley and the xenomorph? That's what this was.
Or they tried to put it through a teleporter and they didn't realize that you can't put a reptilian and a human in the same teleporter together because they just ended up with a split. And on the other half of where the other half ended up, it was a top half reptilian, bottom half human. And that sounds horrifying to see running around personally.
Well, we're going to get into that too. So before we get into that though, kind of closing out El Hombre Caimán, like we said, there's this park that has this really cool looking statue. And every year there's like this festival in this park dedicated to the Alligator Man, which I think is really cool because it shows that cryptid conventions and festivals are just worldwide. Like we've got the Mothman Festival here, down there they've got the Alligator Man Festival. So if we're ever in Colombia or anywhere in South America, we can go and visit this statue and hopefully go to the little festival that they've got there. And I'll probably bring a cooler and show up drunk. So
I don't know how drunk you want to get in Colombia. You might be disappeared depending on the area you're in, you know?
Nah, I don't like living all that much. It's all right.
Come here, white boy. We have some special powder for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Say no more.
I need to be able to go all night. I've been drinking. Let's go. They just got a van that says free white powder on the side. That's how you catch an Orin.
We got Alligator Mans and white powder and beer in here.
Sign me up. I'm in.
We're just going to preface that. Like, if it was free beer, I'd go for that. But I've never done white powder of any sort. So,
what about powdered sugar?
Listeners out there.
We were talking about powdered sugar the whole time, you know, because adding a little bit of powdered sugar to your beer makes it taste better, right? That's what
I went somewhere else with that. I thought you were talking about salt. That's what it is. It's a salt for your margarita.
See, and your beer, because you put a little bit of salt in your beer, and it also enhances the taste. So, boom, there you go.
When in Rome or when in Colombia.
Hey, when you're in Colombia, you got to be drinking them, South American beers. So it definitely fits with the lime and the salt. So, anywho.
All right, guys, we got to take another break. We'll be right back. And now we're getting back to the bazaar.
All right, so I said we were going to talk about something a little more terrifying. So we're to that point now. So Alligator Man, Jake the Alligator Man, that's obviously like more like folklore legend type stuff. But there are like reports of real world human alligator hybrid type creatures. And allegedly there's been these reports of these alligator men, like mostly throughout the southeastern United States, allegedly dating back to at least like the 1700s. Now, there's like very little actual evidence to support any of these claims, but allegedly these creatures were said to possess a humanoid head and torso, like sharp teeth and slits for eyes, and they had green, scaly lower bodies resembling an alligator. They are said to stand over 4 feet tall and weigh approximately 200 pounds, which is pretty stocky for something that's only 4 feet tall.
That's a chode. That's a certified chode right there.
That's a thick boy. But they are said to travel in groups at night and have a taste for raw meat. And I found a particularly interesting story, and it's funny you brought this up earlier in the episode. And this is an Alligator Man account that comes from Linda Godfrey's 2014 book, American Monsters. So, kind of funny you already brought that up.
Unintentionally. I mean, Linda Godfrey kind of has her place a little bit of everywhere as far as the community goes. And she dives into some obscure shit. So if you're digging into some obscure shit, I feel like her name is about to pop up at some point.
And this is an obscure one.
Speaking of obscure shit, why is it that all of these half-human, half-creature hybrids are never human on the bottom half? Can you imagine how much more horrifying that would be?
Well, I mean, I guess like some stuff from like mythology kind of was. You had like the Egyptian gods with like the bird heads and the human bodies, but
can you imagine how horrifying a mermaid would look if it was just human legs and, you know, genitals
like
for the bottom half? Yeah. Can you imagine getting chased on the beach by that? So, no, even the flip side, dude. Can you imagine getting chased down the beach by El Hombre Caimán if he was flipped and he was just like a alligator for the top half and then just like a schlong dong on the bottom half, just chasing you with an alligator head? That sounds significantly more horrifying.
Well, minus the schlong dong, that's what we're going to talk about right now. Cannot confirm nor deny the schlong dong.
Please remove the schlong dongs.
Anyway, so according to Linda Godfrey, in April of 2013, there was an anonymous 18-year-old man who was kayaking in the St. Johns River Delta of Central Florida. And when he was kayaking, a large scaly creature like bumped into his kayak. And so naturally, this guy assumed that he had bumped into an alligator. So he like rowed over to the nearest riverbank and tied off his kayak. And as he stood on the shore, he saw a strange creature crawling out of the water downstream. And the creature was really muscular and it like vaguely resembled an alligator. But its head was, quote, much taller vertically than an alligator's, and its arms were much longer. He also said that the creature's legs were, quote, broader and thicker and positioned directly below the body, rather than off to the sides like a reptile. And as the man was kind of like looking at this creature, it suddenly stood up on its hind legs and hissed at him. And he estimated that it was between 6 and 7 feet tall. Then the creature like walked toward the woods before dropping like back down onto all fours and going into the woods. So of course this guy was like freaking out at that point. He was afraid to get back in the water. So he like ran through the woods back up to the nearest road and returned home. But what's kind of interesting is this man reported seeing the creature again later that same night. So allegedly, him and his girlfriend were sleeping on his sailboat, and they were awakened by something like splashing loudly outside, like in the water outside the boat. And according to the man, quote, "I peered out the porthole facing the canal entrance, and I could see a figure in the dim light on the distant side of the canal. I nearly felt like I'd have a heart attack when I realized it was that thing from earlier." So the man said that he like woke up his girlfriend and they watched the creature like just floating around for several minutes. It swam like all around the sailboat, and allegedly at one point it even like peered into one of the portholes before it like swam away, and allegedly they never saw it again. So
Jesus. That was my phone. I didn't know I had the volume on my board for my phone. My bad. I'm sorry.
It's all good. So no schlong dongs there, but there is a story of a creature that has like an alligator head and a kind of humanish lower body.
I mean, I feel like it's one of those ones that, you know, with a lot of the stuff in the water, I mean, there's definitely some good validity to it, but on the other side, there's also, you know, the factor of people being disillusioned by the water, by the structure of things in the water because light bends and everything like that. But like I said, on the flip side, when it comes to these like aquatic stories, it's like, I feel like there's a lot more validity to them than a lot of other stories, but maybe not on this side of it. But on the other side, I will say that, I don't know about you, but the whole concept of mermaids, like, I feel like there could be some validity to it, not in like the folklore sense, but just in the aspect of humanoid creatures developing underwater. If you start getting into all the obscure kind of weird stuff. So, I mean, if that is theoretically a possibility, you know, maybe there are some little side pockets of some other stuff that have happened to exist and then die out, you know, in small phases, you know. I mean, who knows what could be happening in some of these like micro areas, and then, you know, something happens to get out of that area and then it ends up dying off, and then boom, that's all you see of it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we heard people say, oh, we know more about space than we do about the bottom of the ocean? So yeah, there could be all sorts of things in the water, in the ocean, and like these, like you said, super contained ecosystems like the swamps of Florida. I mean, it doesn't seem outlandish to me that something weird has developed or grows there. You know, I mean, is it as outlandish as the story? No, maybe not. Maybe this is either, you know, like you said, embellished or misinterpreted. But I mean, if there's going to be something weird anywhere, like swamps of Florida seem like a pretty good location to me.
I mean, even on the flip side of that too, getting into like some of the mermaidish kind of lore type stuff. I mean, obviously it seems like most of that would come from the ocean. So, you know, Florida swamps ain't too far off from that. So, I mean,
yeah,
you know, could have encountered some type of like mermaidish being and then kind of spun it into the alligator thing, considering you saw it in a swamp. So maybe like the geographical area also kind of had something to do with how he perceived whatever this thing happened to be that, you know, he had a scuffle with, but next to his boat.
Well, and something that we're going to kind of circle back around to a little bit here before we close out. But, you know, this is the same general area where a lot of like skunk ape sightings are reported. So, I mean, we talk all the time about how like a lot of Sasquatch reports historically could have been misidentified dog man and vice versa. I mean, there could be a little bit of that going on with some of these stories as well.
I mean, portal areas with high strangeness, I mean, that could have something to do with it too. I mean, you never know what it might kick out from that other side. I mean, if you get into the whole idea about some of these portal areas possibly being almost like a wormhole where maybe the other side isn't necessarily fixed, but one side of it is fixed. I mean, the majority of the time it could pull from this area, which is why you're getting apes, your skunk apes, you're getting this. But, you know, every once in a while it could pull from another area and you get some other kind of weird off the wall sighting that came from somewhere else beyond the veil, so to speak.
You get a alligator head, big donged hybrid creature.
In another world, that is how we formed and developed. The entire world is just filled with alligator people. And that's that's how everything in the world has to only be about 4 feet tall. Otherwise, these things aren't able to interact with their environment. So imagine a world like that, man. You know, they say that there's infinite possibilities with infinite realities. And some other reality, man, we did all start off from alligator. It's kind of like Howard the Duck, you know? They all evolved in that world from the duck world. So it's that, but with alligators.
Hey, we can only dream, right? Hold that thought. We'll be back in a flash.
But if you guys don't like hearing the ads, then I have a solution for you. You can get ad-free and early access to this show and Inquiries of All Reality on the Open Minds Media Patreon for just $1 a month. That's less than a bag of chips, and it's a great way to support the show and all the hard work behind it. And if you're interested in merch store discounts or premium video versions of episodes, then there are a few other tiers with additional benefits and 7-day free trials available.
And now back to the show.
All right, so kind of rounding things out, this episode's not really going to have like as much conclusions and theories as, you know, most of our episodes do. This one is more folklore based and kind of just more straightforward than a lot of stuff, but there are some connections to other things that I wanted to bring up. The first one being the Fiji mermaid. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about this, but the Fiji mermaid is another like sideshow attraction that was created allegedly, originally anyway, by sewing the head and torso of a juvenile blue-faced monkey onto the back half of a salmon, which sounds gross as hell. But anyway, the original artifact was believed to have been one of many that were created by Japanese fishermen. And the original one was purchased in 1822 by an American ship captain named Samuel Barrett Eads for $6,000, which is like an absurd amount of money in 1822 dollars.
That monkey head kind of looks like a Nosferatu head.
Yeah, it's like terrifying.
It looks like a mini vampire head.
Anyway, this thing was like later bought by P.T. Barnum, who was like,
of course,
huge in Freemasonry, like high-ranking 33rd degree Freemason. There's a lot of stuff you guys can look into with the circus and Freemasonry and all that sort of shit.
Somebody who would want to have on forever with Paul Stobbs with the whole clown aspect of going into all that stuff.
Anyway, Barnum displayed this thing in his Barnum's American Museum in New York, and throughout the years, several replicas and different versions of this thing have been produced. And I'm sure, Shane, you've got some info you want to share about Fiji mermaids.
I don't know where to start with this one. I mean, other than the fact that, I mean, it's extremely close with the whole like Jake the Alligator thing. I mean, they seem like they could almost be like siblings of each other, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, unfortunately, these are some of those things that it's just like, it's clearly a complete oddity. Like, it's not real. There's no like solid validity to it. But imagine being able to go back to that time frame of like the early 1900s and seeing something like this and just being completely fucking mind blown by it. I mean, but with that being said, I don't, like I said earlier, kind of discredit the whole concept of mermaids, like not in like the folklore-y sense, but I feel like in a little bit more of like a real world sense, it's kind of like the whole like vampire thing that everybody wants to imagine these things as this like beautiful creature. But in real world reality, if something was, you know, evolved at the bottom of the ocean, it's going to be this lightly complected, probably pretty horrifying cave dwelling looking creature. So with that said, I mean, I feel like, obviously this is fake, but it's probably a bit closer to a more actual representation of like what I feel like a mermaid would be.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like with a lot of this sort of stuff, we just have very like sterilized versions, like romanticized almost. But yeah, if any of these kind of folklorish type creatures exist, they're probably fucking horrifying.
Like this guy right here, like this little picture of this little drawing of this dude right here.
So if I'm not mistaken, that picture right there is like a representation of the original P.T. Barnum Fiji mermaid. Like a lot of these are replicas, but that one where it's got like all the gnarled up arms and shit, I believe that's the original one.
I want to find a picture of the original one because that looks pretty fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
Unless he's just trying to sell tickets with an awesome image. I mean, that's always a thing too.
Go to the Fiji mermaid Wikipedia page. I think there's one on there.
Let's see here.
If I'm not mistaken.
I'm going to bring it up. I just got to switch screens here. Fiji mermaid Wikipedia.
riveting television here for everybody.
B.T. Barnum.
So it's kind of a drawing as well, but allegedly that's what the original one looked like.
So I'm assuming the original one is probably in somebody's private collection somewhere and nobody actually knows what it looks like. And more than likely, it's probably in some old lady's hoarder house shoved in the basement somewhere, forever lost in time.
Shit, as old as this thing was, it's probably fucking disintegrated by now. I mean, if it was a monkey sewed onto a salmon, that thing had to smell like hell.
I mean, on the flip side, too, if you have some of these like old world oddities, I feel like that's one of those things that you kind of keep on the hush hush, because I feel like if you publicize the fact that you own this thing, I don't know, I feel like there might be some kind of pull to it, saying that it's like a national artifact of like American folklore or something like that. And there's probably a good chance that they might try to find a way to like legally take it from you. So if you do have some of these oddities, I mean, unless you want to share it with everybody, it's probably best to kind of keep it on the hush hush. Otherwise, you're probably going to have some problems.
Or you could start a roadside attraction and show this thing off and sell seashells by the seashore and bumper stickers and postcards.
Yes, sir. What happened to the Minnesota Iceman? I feel like that's probably hidden somewhere too, because
it's probably in the basement of the Smithsonian.
So the whole story with the Minnesota Iceman, not to get onto some other side tangent, but there was like the original that the owner claimed to have had, and then he said that it like disappeared, and then all of a sudden this other one popped up. So, do you think there's validity to the first one? Maybe the first one's hiding in the Smithsonian. The second one they knew was garbage. They're just like, bah. Because there's all the conspiracies behind it that, they wanted to check it out. Then all of a sudden they weren't interested in checking it out. And they were like, no, we're not interested anymore. And that's when he noticed that it was like off and not weird. So, I mean, obviously there's also the factor of this guy got caught in a lie and he just came up with this giant lie to try to cover up the original lie. Or on the flip side, maybe there was actually something to the original Minnesota Iceman, even if it was just like a early man, and it wasn't necessarily a Sasquatch, it's still something that I'm sure museums would definitely be interested in getting their hands on, especially if it's preserved pretty well in ice.
I mean, gun to my head, that seems perfectly logical to me.
Yeah, we need to find a way to recollect all of these old American folklore roadside attractions and obviously not let the government have their hands on it. They can't be a national museum, but we need to have a, quote, National Museum of American Roadside Oddities and just put it all in one place for everybody.
So I do a lot of Back to the Future quotes. I'm going to throw an Indiana Jones one at you right now. You ready? It belongs in a museum. There you go.
It does.
All right. So kind of rounding out this episode, this is something that's not super duper related, but I thought it merited bringing back up in light of what we were talking about. So if you longtime listeners out there remember, early on, when I joined the show, we did our local lore of the Carolinas episode, and we talked a little bit about the lizard man of Scape or Swamp. And I figured Alligator Man, Lizard Man, this would be a good time to kind of readdress this briefly.
Okay, close enough.
Close enough. But anyway, so this kind of started in the summer of 1988, and there were several sightings of a large bipedal creature in the area around Bishopville, South Carolina. The most famous sighting happened on the night of June 29th. And on this night, there was a 17-year-old boy named Chris Davis, and he was driving home from his job working at McDonald's, and he got a flat tire. So he pulled over, changed the tire, got back in his car, was getting ready to drive away, and he saw this 7-foot-tall, greenish-brown humanoid creature. He claimed that it had 3 fingers, glowing red eyes, and he said that it had a long tail. So allegedly, this creature jumped on the roof of the car, and Davis sped off, and it knocked the creature to the ground. Allegedly, the creature chased down the car and jumped onto the roof again before ultimately falling off, and this kid got away.
I really hope it actually looked like this picture. Like it looked like this Power Ranger villain right here. I don't know if this is from Power Rangers, but it definitely looks like
a Temu, like Godzilla costume.
That would be the one that CBS Austin uses to talk about this story. They're like, yes, the Lizard Man, and we use the worst possible fucking image ever.
I mean, that might actually be worse than like Power Rangers level special effects.
Little fun story about Power Rangers. Did you know the Power Rangers stole all the fight scenes from an old Japanese TV show? And the only thing they actually filmed was the parts where the kids weren't in the costumes.
With the American kids, yeah.
Yep.
Actually, we were watching a documentary about that not so long ago.
Dude, that's crazy that all the villains, like all the main villains in the show, all of them, it was like they did voiceover for, but they did such a good job that you didn't notice. So you're like, yes, these are these Power Ranger fucking villains, but they never were in the first place.
Well, it also helps that you're 4 years old and you're like, yes, this is the height of cinema right here.
That and fucking Beetleborgs. You remember that show?
I think I might have been a little too old for that one.
Dude, Beetleborgs was awesome. I was always like a, B type of person. So Beetleborgs, dude, it had the monsters involved because they hung out at the house where they had like, the mummy guy, the vampire, the flabber, the ghost guy. So I was all in the range of Beetleborgs. That was my shit. But of course, Power Rangers, everybody watches Power Rangers. But
yeah, Beetleborgs, I got nothing on that one.
Big bad Beetleborgs.
All right, so fast forwarding on July 14th of 1988, there's this local family who reported that on the previous night, their car had been like mauled by a large creature when it was sitting in their driveway. They said that wires from the car's engine had been ripped out, and there were reddish brown hairs found and large footprints also at the scene. On July 24th, 2 local teenagers reported that while they were driving near Bishopville, they saw this large bipedal creature run across the road in front of them. 2 county sheriff's deputies investigated the area. They found several 40-gallon drums that had been crushed and scattered along the road. They found large 3-toed footprints and broken tree limbs that were nearly 9 feet off the ground. One last encounter in the initial wave that I'll share, there was a crop duster, and he claimed that about 1 month before Chris Davis's sighting, he saw this like strange bipedal creature walk across the runway while he was taking off in his plane. Allegedly, he said that the creature was grayish brown in color and had a face that resembled a monkey's. Fast forwarding a few years to 1991, there's this couple, and they claimed that they nearly collided with a large Sasquatch-like creature while they were driving near Bishopville. And in 2008, there was another report of a car being damaged, like in a very similar way to one of those 1988 incidents that we just talked about. At that point, they did DNA testing on the hairs found at the scene, and it was concluded that it most likely came from a domestic dog, which I think is kind of interesting because while this thing is called the Lizard Man, like most of the reports, the eyewitnesses basically report like a Sasquatch type entity or some large hairy hominid. So I think it's possible that this was a misidentified Bigfoot or maybe even a dog man. They talked about it attacking cars multiple times. They, talked about the DNA testing done on the hairs came back as a domestic dog.
Think about the face too, because the lizard have the elongated face, which would be a little bit different than the Sasquatch. But some people might interpret that as a monkey face too, because it definitely seems like the dog man / Sasquatch kind of mix up could definitely make a little bit more sense with the lizard man thing just because of the elongated face.
Well, and like we talk about all the time, like back in the late 80s, early 90s, like Dogman wasn't really a thing that much, especially in like South Carolina. Like, yeah, maybe up in Bray Road, it was a thing. But in South Carolina, it wouldn't have been. So it could just be another misidentified Dogman type situation. And people have suggested that, like the lizard man scales type thing, or just mud from the swamp that was like matted in this thing's hair. And it made it kind of look like scales when it dried and cracked. So I think that's kind of interesting. If you listeners will remember recently when we had Timothy Renner on the show, we talked a lot about like Bigfoot and 3-toed footprints. You guys go check out that episode if you have not. But anyway, I thought this was kind of worth throwing in here at the end just to kind of compare and contrast. And like we said, Lizard Man close enough to Alligator Man. I thought it was worth bringing back up. So that's all I got.
I'm glad you brought up the thing with Timothy Renner, because as soon as you said the 3-toes thing, I remember that some of the reports were Sasquatch-like, and I was hoping that you'd bring that back in, because that just seems like another one that kind of connects in with what he's been researching. And I'm kind of curious if he has touched this one as part of that research, because if he starts diving in, I'm kind of curious if there may have been some women in white sightings around that same time too.
So I'm not sure about that. Our friend of the show, Lyle Blackburn, who was recently on. If you guys haven't checked out that episode, go check that one out as well. He's got a whole book that he did about the lizard man. A lot of this information I got from that book, but he goes super duper in depth with it. If you guys are interested in this subject at all, I would recommend y'all picking up that book. And if this is something y'all want us to see, or want to see us rather readdress on the show, like I said, we just kind of hit it briefly in a very old kind of grab bag type episode, and we just ran through, kind of the high water marks here. So if you guys want us to dive deeper into the lizard man, that is something I am definitely willing to do. So
I think we have a solution to all of these things. It was either a caiman or a tegu. That's the general answer when it comes to this type of stuff. So it must have all been a tegu that people misidentified, right?
Well, that's kind of funny. I mean, remember when we talked about like our living dinosaurs episode, and a lot of those reports could have been like misidentified Komodo dragons and things like that. The reports that said they were like 4 feet tall and 200 pounds. That's what that made me think about. Like if they saw this thing like up on a rock or something like that, that's kind of proportions that it seems like somebody might make the leap and assume,
I'm kind of curious too, if just another possible answer to at least maybe the one from Colombia, if there was an alligator that may have gotten into a fight with another alligator and it had part of its like mouth ripped off, maybe there was one alligator in the area that had like a shortened mouth or shortened snout, and they were seeing this thing and they were like, oh, the top half's a human, the bottom half's an alligator, because when it comes to like folklore and stuff like that, dude, it ends up spreading really, really quick. And it starts off with one guy saying like, oh, I saw this really weird looking alligator that had like a flat face. And then the next person's like, Tom just said that he saw an alligator that had a human face. And the next person's like, hey, this guy said that this guy just saw an alligator man where it was half human, half alligator. Like, think about how quickly that stuff changes. And even within like Colombia and stuff where, there's a lot more like the small villages, a lot more like localized people, like to entertain themselves. People are telling stories, dude. So these stories, I feel like, spread faster in like these areas than they would like, in our area, for example, because everybody up here is entertained by social media, all this kind of shit, where, down there, even when these stories happen now, dude, it's like everything's word of mouth. People are still like interacting like that, sharing stories. Yeah. So this stuff spreads, and it also morphs and changes very quickly, I feel, in South America.
Well, and we considered a deformed human. We didn't consider initially a deformed alligator. So, I mean, that's option number 2.
I mean, which one? I feel like they're both definitely, they definitely got some pretty good validity to
it. Stay tuned, guys. This is our last break.
But if you guys enjoyed this show and think we deserve it, please leave a review or rating for the show on iTunes or Spotify or any other podcatcher you use. Your continued support is what makes this show possible, and your opinions go a long way to help the show grow and improve. So thank you guys. Now feel free to skip past these ads so we can get back to the show.
And now we're getting back to the bazaar.
Well, Shayn, I think we should share this comment made by Mans. I think this is a good one. If you want me to read it or you want to read it.
Which one is it? Is it the very bottom?
Yeah, the bottom one.
All right, I'll bring it up on the screen. Here you go.
Well, he said, love this folklore about El Hombre Caimán. Very interesting. Can't believe this homie fumbled the white potion. We got some emojis there. And this is the funny part. Great episode. I'm out. See y'all later, alligators.
There you go. After a while, crocodile.
Heyo.
Heyo. I'm punny, as they say.
But anyway, that's all I got for this one. Kind of a more lighthearted folklore-based episode like we've been doing lately, but still kind of a fun one to put together. I thought the Jake the Alligator Man stuff is funny. I think his yearly bride is just hilarious. The razor clam and the frying pan, like just all this stuff is like peak Americana, I think. And like you said, in like our fast-paced culture where we're just on to the next thing, like we're not making new Jake the Alligator Man's and world's largest frying pan stories anymore. So I think it was kind of cool to kind of revisit stuff like that.
See, I mean, even the difference too, back in the day, it's like even if people didn't believe it, they still kind of like entertained the fascination of it, you know, where now I feel like if you try to like recreate this stuff, even if you did it fully for the aspect of like, oh, this is just fun oddities, people are going to sit here and they're just going to talk about like, oh, it's fake. And then that's just going to be like the whole motif behind it, when it's like you're telling people that it's fake, but people are still going to think that you're trying to like pull one over on them, because that's the society we live in nowadays. Like, I feel like people have kind of lost their sense of wonder for things like this, you know, like entertaining the possibility that these weird things exist, not directly entertaining that, yes, this is a solid real thing and right in front of me. Like, people want that real shit now. Like, they can't just entertain fun ideas anymore, you know?
Well, it's kind of something we talked about in our recent Solway Firth Spaceman episode. One of the, kind of researchers, experts on that case, basically said the exact same thing. Like, this is not a mythology and a story that could organically grow nowadays, because everybody's just so skeptical about everything. But decades ago, people were, I'm not going to say gullible, they were much more open-minded to entertaining things like this. So, so these kind of stories are a lot of fun. And I think, in 50 years, we're probably still going to be talking about the Solway Firth Spaceman and the Alligator Man. I don't know if we're going to have new stories like this that pop up, just because we're just, like the Monroe Monster, we're just on to the next thing. So, again, like we talk about with a lot of this folklore, I think it's very important to keep these kind of stories alive, and they're a lot of fun to talk about too.
Speaking of that, we'll have to touch base on what is it, Jake the Mongoose? Am I thinking of the right name? Because that's another kind of like weird oddity.
Something like that. I don't really know anything about it.
It was basically like a talking mongoose. It was like a paranormal talking mongoose. So I mean, it could definitely be a fun one to dive into. All these like
that would be a lot of fun. So you guys also hit us up if you want us to talk about talking mongooses.
Or if you guys have any weird local folklore stories, such as this one, that may be lost if people don't talk about them on podcasts, throw them our way, because, if you guys aren't telling us about them, then, they might just fall into obscurity. So, we're always happy to take suggestions. And with that, of course, if you guys enjoyed today's conversation, you guys want to show some love, smash that follow icon and share today's episode with a friend. Grassroots support from listeners just like you guys is exactly how the show grows. So thank you.
And if you guys want to get up with us for any reason whatsoever, or to be a guest on the show, or basically just anything, Shane, tell them how they can do that.
First and foremost, you guys can email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com, or you guys can get a hold of us on social media. Instagram and Facebook are the ones that we are the most active on. Or you guys could always pop into the Discord, and you guys can, of course, get a hold of us through there. Or you guys can get a hold of us through the link tree, or the submission form, which is up at the top of the link tree. And the last way you guys can get a hold of us is through our hotline. That number is 313-364-1551. There are many ways to get a hold of us, so just make sure that you guys get a hold of us, because there's a million different means. So make it easy in some way, shape, or form. And if you guys got something to say, again, just get a hold of us.
And as always, you guys be sure to show some love to our friends and sponsors of the show. We got our buddies Rick and Hans with I Know Squatch for all your squatchy gear needs. We got our buddy Dave, a.k.a. the Snarly Yow, with Snarly Yow Natural Products. He's got some beard oils. He's got body wash. He also puts on some kick-ass events in the West Virginia area, so you guys check him out. We've got our buddy Joe with Cryptoteology for your... You ready for it?
I'm ready.
Wearable cryptids. And we've also got Big Ape Threads.
And if you guys got some extra time, don't forget to check out our awesome friends with affiliate links. We got Dimension Devices, Oregon-ite, and Sticker Mule. And you guys can get some additional discounts and credits, which are available down in the show description.
And all this Gatorific shit is in the link tree in the show description.
And with that, just like Roadside Oddities, we always stay bizarre. We always keep it bizarre. So just like us, and just like postmodern America, always, always stay bizarre. Bizarre. Bizarre.
Stop staring at ladies from the riverbank.